Hello, y'all. We are going to start today with our trig graphing and moving the graphs around, flipping them over, reflections, amplitude changes, vertical shifts, and phase shift. Reflection, of course, is when we flip something over. Amplitude changes will be a height change. Vertical shifts will be sliding the whole thing up or down, and a phase shift is sliding it left and right. So we're going to look at sine and cosine. So before we start, let's remember what we studied yesterday. We practiced drawing the sine curve, right? And sine, I'm going to put a 1, -1. So sine starts at 0, 1, 0, -1, 0, right? We practice and we know that this is a wave and this wave keeps oscillating, right? So once you get one point on, you know where the rest go and it just keeps right on going. So that's our parent sine graph. And then go in a little closer. And then we'll have our parent cosine graph. 1, -1. Cosine starts top, center, because at 0, cosine has a value of 1. That's back from your unit circle. Now today we're going to move these, so they're going to go other places, but I want you to think back to where they started, right? And remember, these are curves. Don't make your arrows go off the edge here. It does turn and keep going, and they're not sharp and pointy, they're curvy, right? And of course, for both sine and cosine, what is the domain? All real numbers. The range, -1 to 1, and the period is 2 pi. That's your memory work from last time. Now we're going to look at what happens. So this one says we're supposed to do sine plus 1. So that means I'm going to move the whole graph. Well, if I can. The whole graph is going to go up 1. So my center line is right here. The easiest way to do this is to draw a new center line in. So it's kind of like I moved up 1 from the x-axis. Now, sine is 1 tall, so I'm going to put on a top that's 1 above and a bottom that's 1 below. Now I have my new top and bottom in, and I just have to sketch it. So sine starts where? Sine starts center, top, center, bottom, center. So what I did, if I get used to thinking top, center, bottom, center, top, center, all I have to do is move my boundaries, and it's very easy to graph. It's kind of like if you've ever been bumper bowling, we put the bumpers up. Okay, so let's look at this guy. This is cosine -2. This means I'm going to go down 2. So start from 0, go down 2. Now this is your new center line. It's your new x-axis if you want to think about it that way. So now I'm going to put in my top and bottom. We know that cosine so far is 1 tall. So I've got a line above and I've got a line below. And then I just go back and think about cosine. Cosine starts up top, right? Now, we used to be at 1 with my parent, but this time I've changed where my top and bottom are. So I just need to remember cosine starts on top. So if I'm at top, the only place I can go is middle, bottom, middle, top, top, middle, bottom, middle, top. So it's a repeating pattern. And you notice it doesn't change its, oops, I missed my dot right there a little bit. It doesn't change its shape, right? Cosine keeps its shape. It always looks, so this is my center line right here. Center, top, bottom. We'll always put a center, a top, and a bottom in. So that is a vertical shift. We move them up or down. Right here, we're going to have an amplitude of 2. I'll address the negative sign in a second. So my center line is still at 0 this time, but it's going to be 2 units tall. So I'm going to make my top 2 units above and my bottom 2 units below. So let's look at this. The amplitude is 2, so notice there's 4 in between your top and bottom because there is 2 means distance from center, 2 above center, 2 below, and that's called the amplitude. Okay, now sine starts center and goes top. So if you look at the pattern of sine, it goes center, top, center, bottom. That's the pattern, right? And then back to center. So with a negative sign out front, right here, that is a reflection. When we have a reflection, whether it's for sine or cosine, the centers still stay in the same place, but your top and bottom switch. So if this is a reflection, center will still be center, but now I'm going to go center bottom. Okay, so a center, top. Once I get the pattern going, it keeps repeating. So the big difference when I have a negative, I've flipped it upside down, which means my centers stay the same, but my top and bottom are switched. So sine is going to be in the center. It would go top, but that negative sign in the front of this equation tells me I should go to the bottom. And once I get going, it's easy to do my pattern because I always have to go center, top, center, bottom, center, top, center, bottom, center. We never go top, center, top. That never happens. We always go all the way through top to bottom. And there we go. Notice it looks exactly like the parent. Now this is 1, 2, -1, -2. It looks just like the parent, but it's flipped over, okay? So you should go ahead and hit the pause button, right? And then, well, hold on just a second. Let's do the domain. Domain on sine is always -infinity to infinity, but let's look at the range. The range on this one is -2 to 2. Of course, the period is 2 pi until further notice. We won't be able to change the period today. We'll change that later. So now go ahead and hit the pause button and try to do these on your own. When you're done, come back and I am going to do them for you. That way you can check. If you got them all right, you can just fast forward through. Okay, so hit pause, try them on your own, and then come back and do them with me. Adios. Okay, you're back. There's a 3 right here. So I am going to put the top, the center is not moved. So my center is still at center. And my top will be up here. My bottom will be down here. And sine starts center. Then it goes top, center, bottom, center. This is top, center, so it's got to go bottom, center, top, center. And right now, all of our dots are falling along the 90-degree or the pi over 2 spaces. We will change that later. Okay, and what's the domain on this? All sine has the same domain, all real numbers, or, and you can go back and fill them in on those. The range, the bottom is -3, the top is at 3, and the period is still 2 pi. Until further notice, we are always going to have 2 pi. Okay? Let's see if you got the next 2 done correctly. So this +1 tells me my center is up at 1. I'm going to color that pink so you know. And then it's too tall. Right? So that I'm going to count 2 squares above and 2 squares below. 1, 2. Right? And that's from the 2. So let's put this in. Cosine starts on top. So we're going to start on the top. Then it goes middle. And then it goes bottom. You can see that putting a nice bright marker or center line in there and helps keep you from trying to go to the x-axis. It's real easy to say, oh, I want to go down here, but we don't, because this is our new center line. Center. Okay, does it keep its shape? It does keep its shape. This is a cosine wave, and you may notice sine and cosine waves look exactly the same. We have to know something about them to know whether this is really cosine or a sine that's been shifted. And we'll look at that in a little bit. What's the domain on all cosine? All real numbers, or negative infinity to positive infinity, to the range. So far today, the only thing that can change for you is the range. This one goes from -1 to 3. And of course, the period is still 2 pi. So hopefully those are all making sense. Again, this is the only one that changes. You write the bottom down and then the top. All right, one more. We are going to put our center line at 1. We are going to put 3 is our amplitude, and amplitude is always positive because amplitude just means how tall is your wave from center. So we never answer an amplitude question as a negative. The amplitude here is 3, not -3, just 3. So we count 1, 2, 3 up. And we count 1, 2, 3 down. There, we have our little training wheels on. Now, cosine should go top, center, bottom, right? But we have a negative out there. A negative is going to reflect that. So it's going to flip your top and bottom. So this is going to start bottom, go through center, and then top. And then you'll just repeat that pattern. So we're going to start bottom, center, top. And remember, our spacing is in pi over 2 or 90-degree increments right now. So we just go bottom, center, top, center, bottom. The little dotted lines really will help you. Those are not actually part of the graph, but they are very good at helping you get the graph done correctly. So hopefully that makes sense. If it didn't, pause this and see if you can go back and look at what happened. Okay. The last thing we're going to look at today are phase shifts. Phase shifts mean we're either moving to the right or we're moving to the left. We're still going to keep our pattern, our center top, center bottom pattern, but we're going to scoot them over. So I'm going to put very lightly on here what sine should look like. Sine should be center, top, center, bottom, center, right? This is the parent. Oops. I'm not going to draw it in, but if we would, it would be, a sine wave. Now, this says x minus pi over 2. So that means I'm going to move to the right pi over 2. So just pi over 2 on this graph is 2 squares. Pi over 2 means 90 degrees. And if you notice, our scale is set up for every 2 boxes. So that just means every point is going to go 2 boxes to the right. So this point is really going to be here. This point is going to be here. Then this point is going to be there. This point is going to be here. So you notice, right, it's shifted over. Everybody has moved right. This one would be down here, so that's right there. So all we did was shift all of our points over. And this is the new start. And once you find your new start, really all you have to do is say, okay, I started, I'm going to go center top, center bottom, unless something else is done. Does that make sense? I hope so, because now we got a tough one. So let's write down everything that's happening here. First of all, we're going down one. So that is going to put our new center line right there, correct? Then I have an amplitude of 2. So that means I count up 2, above my center line, and down 2, below my center line. And I really should be marking these 1, 2, 3 to let someone know the scale. Okay, now I'm negative. What does that negative sign tell me? Well, sine starts in the center. Sine usually goes center top, center bottom. But since it's reflected, it's going to go center bottom, center top. And until you become an expert, I think it will help you to write those words down so you know where you're going. Last but not least, we are going to go left pi over 4. Now let's think about how far that is. My period doesn't change. So if you notice the dots are always 2 boxes apart this way because they're 90 degrees apart. So they're still going to be 2 boxes apart, but I am going to start left pi over 4. That's 45 degrees. So this is 90. So that means I'm starting 1 box over. So I pick my new start. 1 box over, sine start center. Once I do that, it's just the pattern, center bottom, center top. And notice these dots are 2 boxes apart. So all I really have to do is count over 2 boxes and go to the bottom. Count over 2 boxes, come back to center. Count over 2 boxes, come up to top. Count over 2 boxes, go back to center. So it's really important that you understand the pattern and that you have a clear scale drawn and use graph paper. So over 2, going to go top. Over 2, going to come back to center. Over 2, going to go to bottom. These are 2 apart because the period is 2 pi. And if the period is 2 pi, we are putting our numbers in every 90 degrees. And that's because of this. In case you've forgotten, it's because the 1s and 0s are 90 degrees apart. So once I do this, I just put my sketch in. Well, that didn't quite, I should be over here, but I went off the scale, off the chart, okay? So let's look at these. I want you to try these. So pause it, and then you try to do those, and then come back, and then we just have a couple little questions to do. So hit the pause button. Okay, you're back. Let's look at these. Okay, hopefully these are okay. This one went left pi, so I started over here. Now remember, cosine starts top, then it goes center, then it goes bottom. And cosine has a height of 2 in here because the amplitude is 2. So our center is still here and we're 2 up. Now we're starting at pi, so we go over to pi, and we know that cosine starts on the top. So there we are on top. Then we go top, center, bottom, center, top, and we know the dots are always 2 squares apart right now because of how we have it scaled. We'll change that next time. This one, sine starts center, and we moved right pi over 4. So I scoot over 1 box to the right, and now all my dots will be 2 boxes apart. So I go center, top, center, bottom. Notice my center is still on the x-axis, but I do have an amplitude of 3. So that's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and that comes from the 3 right there. Okay, we are almost done. You're being a real trooper for hanging out with me. If you need to take a little break, take one and come back and join me. This part is really easy. We've been giving you equations and making you do the work. Now I want to give you the work, the picture, and I want you to write the equation. Very easy to do. The first thing that I would do is put on my top and my bottom, right? And that way I can see where the center is. 1, 2, 1, 2, the center is right there. Now it's telling me I'm supposed to use sine, so I'm going to write y equals sine of x. Right now you can't change that x, that's tomorrow's lesson. So all I have to do is say, where is center? Center is down 1. And then I have to say, what's the amplitude? Well, 1, 2, 1, 2, so the amplitude is 2. And then is it upside down? It is not, so I'm completely finished. Let's look at this one. We'll, of course, put on the top. We'll put on the bottom. And we'll put in the center. Now this one says use cosine. All right. Here's the x-axis, and I notice my center is up 1, so we have a +1. Now, cosine is supposed to start on the top, but it started on the bottom right here, so that tells me this is negative. And now I'll see if there's a height change. It's only 1 up and 1 down, so there's just a 1 out there, so I'm finished. Not too bad. Okay, the last little thing I'll ask you to do is I'll give you a verbal description and ask you to write it. Now this one is telling us to do sine. So we're going to have y equals sine of x. Now we got to add to it. Amplitude of 3. So I have a 3 there. Period of 2 pi, they're all going to say that for me today because that's all I know how to do. Next time, we'll learn how to make period changes. Vertical shift of down 2, -2, and you're done. All right, let's do the next one. I know that it's sine because those are my instructions. Okay, amplitude of 1, that's just a 1 in the front. I don't have to write a 1. Period of 2 pi, that's a given because it's all I know yet. A vertical shift up 3. So up 3 is going to be a +3. A vertical reflection. So a vertical reflection is going to be a negative out front. Okay, so you take a second and try 14 and 15 on your own. You can pause this, try those, and then come back with me. I'm going to write the answers down, pause them, and try them on your own first. And remember the phase shift goes in here. Right is a minus, right? But wait, and then our last one is going to be y equals -3 cosine -2. That's the easy part. Left pi over 2, so that's x plus pi over 2. And that's all there is. So try your homework, and I will see you next time. Adios, amigos.